Tonight, it's the first TV debate of the election campaign. Is this the night Rishi Sunak starts to turn things around in the polls? The Prime Minister will be facing off against Labour leader Keir Starmer in 2 hours' time. We'll be live in the spin room at ITV Studios in Salford and hearing from both parties. 2 people have been arrested after the Reform UK leader Nigel Farage has a milkshake thrown over him while campaigning in Clacton. On the campaign trail, the Conservatives, Labour and Reform have all been talking about how they want to cut legal migration. Our economics and data editor Ed Conway has been looking at how realistic the party's pledges are. And ahead of tonight's Leaders to TV debate, we'll ask how much has changed since the first one in 2010. Back then, the hashtag was I agree with Nick. Was it a more innocent time? Well, Baroness, Kate Fall and Sir Ben Bradshaw will be with us for the next hour. We'll see how much they agree with each other tonight. It's Tuesday. I'm Sophy Rodge live from Westminster and this is the Politics Hub. Hello, good evening. Well, tonight is the night, the first TV debate of the election campaign. The first time that some voters will pay attention and one of the final chances for the Conservatives to shift opinion before postal ballots start arriving next week. So tonight could be critical. But the more I think about it, the more I think that yesterday was also a huge moment in this election campaign. The first 2 MRP polls projecting the result had absolutely stonking Labour majorities, the YouGov version giving Keir Starmer the biggest ever Labour majority, surpassing 1997. If that happened, it would be a generational shift, a redrawing of the electoral map. And of course, polls can be wrong, but even still, Rishi Sunak knows he needs something big to shift the dial. So far, nothing's worked. National service, tax cuts for pensioners, scrapping Mickey Mouse degrees, none of these things have really shifted the polls. So what kind of moment in the TV debate would be enough to turn around a 20-point deficit in those polls? I mean, frankly, I have no idea. Tonight, we'll see if number 10 does. Well, let's head straight to Salford, shall we? And we can speak now to our chief political correspondent, John Craig, who is in the spin room ahead of the debate. John, how's the spinning going?
Well, welcome to the spin room, Sophie. We are in the Coronation Street experience here at the ITV studios in Salford. You can see it's filling up with well, I can see Fleet Street's finest. I can see television and radio broadcasters, and it's starting. There's a real buzz now. The debate itself starts at 9 o'clock. So the Coronation Street experience is where we are, and of course politics is nothing if not a soap opera, and it's going to be gripping, it'll be dramatic tonight. Rishi Sunak really has got to take the gloves off and come out fighting, because that poll we revealed on Sky News yesterday showing that massive Labour lead, a bigger majority even that Tony Blair got in 1997. So we can expect probably some quite personalised attacks on Sir Keir Starmer, perhaps on his record as Director of Public Prosecutions, Sir Flip-Flop, Sir Softy on crime and immigration perhaps. We're going to hear quite a lot about the inconsistencies Labour claim, the Tories claim about Labour's policies, about who's going to pay for various Labour policies and so on. At the same time, we heard from Jonathan Ashworth a short time ago. He was talking about Sir Keir going after the Prime Minister on unfunded Tory policies. And no doubt Sir Keir will talk about the economy, the cost of living, the National Health Service, those issues that he believes, Labour believe that they are strong on. We're used to seeing them at Prime Minister's questions, of course. Some of those exchanges, the Prime Minister can get a bit tetchy. No doubt his advisers will be telling him to keep cool and not get a bit scratchy and a bit tetchy. Sir Keir, of course, is more used to being addressing judges or juries rather than TV audiences. They've both been in intense and probably gruelling preparation since Sunday. I can tell you, Sophie, that playing Sir Keir Starmer in the Tory rehearsals has been Oliver Dowden. He's for years been standing in, helping Tory Prime Ministers for Prime Minister's questions. Now helping Sir Keir, playing Rishi Sunak, is a young man called Tom Webb, a little-known backroom figure. I'm told he's quite a good mimic of Tory Prime Ministers. So they've been practising like mad. Rishi Sunak was on the same train as me coming up, got off the train very casually dressed, but he had a massive audience, an entourage, I beg your pardon, and they almost filled a first-class carriage, if not all of it. As for the audience, well, it all starts here at 9 o'clock tonight. This is the spin room. This is where we're going to be watching it. Afterwards, there'll be a lot of senior politicians here, likes of Michael Gove, Victoria Atkins from the Tories, Jonathan Ashworth for Labour, obviously all trying to tell all of us that their candidate has won. This is the first of two, plus the Sky News event this year. I remember I was here in 2010, the old Granada studios, when famously Gordon Brown and David Cameron rather blundered by saying, "I agree with Nick." And of course that fed Clegg mania and led to Mr Clegg becoming Deputy Prime Minister. You remember he looked straight down the barrel of the camera, Nick Clegg, and that worked for him. I wonder if we'll see either Mr Sunak or Sir Keir look straight down the barrel or argue with each other side by side. It all starts at 9 o'clock. Get your popcorn at the ready.
I'll make sure I go and get some emergency popcorn. It's going to be an interesting night. John, thank you very much indeed. Well, we're going to be getting much more on the debates in the programme tonight. But first, though, we're going to do our regular feature, having a look at where the parties have taken their campaigns today. There's lots we can read into this. So first up, this is the Home Secretary, James Cleverly. He was in Rochester for the Conservatives, pitching the party's plans for a cap on worker and family visas. Now, the Labour Party have taken their battle bus to Bolton, where Keir Starmer met with voters in a cafe. The Shadow Science Minister was also in Stoke with the Chancellor Rachel Reeves and the Scottish Labour leader Anna Sawar. That's them in Edinburgh. Now, the Lib Dems were in Cheadle, where Ed Davey took the opportunity for another photo stunt. Of course, it was Ed Davey with a game of blue wall Jenga. See what he did there. And he also paid a visit to North Shropshire, nearby on the map there. John Swinney continued his campaign for the SNP. He was also in Edinburgh. Voters there really getting spoiled today. And the new leader of Reform UK, Nigel Farage, was out and about in Clacton in Essex, where he's standing to be an MP. Sky's political correspondent Rob Powell has today's campaign report.
A campaign launch that was always likely to be eventful. 2 people were arrested after Nigel Farage had a milkshake thrown over him while leaving a pub in Clacton. Earlier, parts of the East Coast resort ground to a halt as the Reform leader began his campaign to become the local MP.
The Conservatives have betrayed that trust. They've opened up the borders to mass immigration like we've never seen before.
Hundreds of people crowded near to the pier in the town often known as the birthplace of Brexit.
He's not a racist.
Yes, he is.
The controversial politician bringing debate and division to the Essex seaside.
We're entitled to...
I'm not being rude or nothing, so you're all for mass immigration.
Campaigning further south in Kent, the Home Secretary visibly trying to address those concerns. James Cleverly proposing a migration cap that would see MPs vote on the number of work and family visas that could be issued each year.
The Tories have broken so many promises to bring down migration. Why on earth should voters believe you now?
So we have seen a 10% fall in legal migration because of the actions that I've taken with the full support of the Prime Minister since becoming Home Secretary. We've seen the visa routes that have created the largest influx of people. Those applications are down by 25% because of the action that we have taken.
But with electoral threats on all sides, will that be enough?
The Tory campaign has so far been geared around more traditional Conservative policies like national service, pensioner tax breaks and now a tougher immigration system. But with Nigel Farage back, there will likely be pressure to move further to the right to try and stop voters switching to support reform.
Making a low-key entrance to meet pensioners in Bolton, it's Sir Keir Starmer who stands to benefit from a surge in support for reform. But Labour know they need to reassure voters on immigration, so it's no surprise they're also taking a spiky tone.
We need a skills strategy in this country so we don't have to have so many people arriving on work visas, and we have to hammer down on bad bosses who aren't complying with Labour standards, and we would ban them from recruiting people from abroad.
We've seen this one before. A decade after Nigel Farage's old party took Clacton in a by-election, many of the issues concerning voters here haven't changed, and neither has this man's ability to draw a crowd. Rob Powell, Sky News.
And here's a list of the candidates declared so far in the Clacton constituency, one that we're sure to be watching on election night. The full list of candidates there for Clacton on your screens. Right, let's bring in our duo for tonight, shall we? Baroness Kate Fall, who is Deputy Chief of Staff to David Cameron in Downing Street, and the former Labour MP, Sir Ben Bradshaw. Great to have from the programme. Is it quite nice to be sitting this one out?
It's very nice. It's very nice. It's a bit more restful than usual. I'm doing some campaigning, but not the kind of 12 hours a day, 30k a day I would normally do.
Yeah, you need to find another way of getting your step count up, probably. I feel like we should reflect a bit on the Nigel Farage milkshake incident, because there's been a lot of mirth about it on Twitter, hasn't there? But it's quite serious, isn't it, at the same time? What do you think, Kate?
Well, look, I don't think people should be abused or attacked in a campaign, full stop. Separately, obviously, it's a bit of a blow to Rishi and the Tories to suddenly have Farage taking on every single seat, which he didn't do last time, against a background of pretty difficult polls. I think the campaign's got off to a sort of core vote strategy with Rishi. I don't feel he's doing some of that sort of nation-building speaking. He talked about economic and national security about a week before, and then he's now gone to these policies which feel very core vote. So I hope we see a bit of him tonight, reaching out beyond that, a bit more sort of national messaging. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? It does feel like a core vote strategy so far. Do you think it's fair to say that Labour's got a kind of Ming Vase strategy? If you like, they're kind of carrying it very carefully across the floor to make sure it doesn't shatter?
Yes, and absolutely nothing wrong with that. You know, we're used to losing, so of course we have a Ming Vase strategy. But I think also, I mean, the Farage thing, I think, you know, may help us in the short term, but I do worry about kind of the long term and the retalk. Well, I mean, him, you know, a man who has more responsibility forever than anyone for the toxic debate of politics in our country and for Brexit, which I think has been a total disaster coming back. And we need a sensible centre-right opposition. So if Farage means that after the election, if Labour wins, the Tories go into civil war and we end up without a sensible centre-right, strong, sensible centre-right opposition which can hold the Labour government to account. That's really worrying in the national interest.
Are you concerned about that as well? I mean, Farage has said that, you know, he doesn't want to join the Conservative Party, he wants to take it over.
Yes, or destroy it. I mean, look, I'm worried, first of all, it means the party thinks they have to vote just looking on its right rather than thinking at the votes in the centre. And I worry that some of the party are already fighting the next battle, which is of the leadership of the party, rather than concentrating on people who are out there who deserve to have a proper choice and hear from both parties. So I really... And then the final thing is, of course, the polls show lots of people maybe losing their seats. So there's a sense of Rishi, you know, the loneliness of power there, sort of by himself as his cabinet look at these polls thinking I might actually not even be an MP at the end of, well, at the beginning of July.
Even some people who are talked of as leadership candidates, Penny Mordaunt, for example.
Exactly.
There's been talk, hasn't there, in the YouGov MRP yesterday projecting a bigger majority for the Labour Party than in 1997. I mean, I think that was when you were first elected, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
Does it have 97 vibes?
It doesn't have the same vibe. In the public mood is very different now. I mean, there was a lot of enthusiasm and more optimism, I think, back then, and a less bad economic inheritance. I think the public mood is different, and I think the Labour campaign reflects that. And so people think, well, there's not the enthusiasm, so how can it be like 97? It could be like 97 because the government is so unpopular and even more unpopular than the Tory government was back under John Major. But I think the fact that we're so far ahead in the polls is probably making the Labour strategists feel even more Ming Vase-ish in their approach because, you know, in a way, they would be worried that if we have a big lead and Farage makes it bigger, then it will, you know, demotivate our volunteers and our people will get complacent, and also voters won't bother to go out and vote because they'll think it's in the bag. And it was a bit like the referendum. A lot of young people didn't bother to vote in the Brexit. If young people had voted in the Brexit referendum at the same extent of older people, we'd still be in the European Union, and they got a real shock. And I don't want them to get a similar shock after this by thinking it's in the bag for Labour, so I can vote Green or I won't bother to vote.
Is there anything that the Conservative Party can do, do you think, to turn it all around?
Well, I think they should sort of give the country something to vote for that isn't just these sort of spiky policies that are designed, as I said, to...
It's like a narrative.
Yeah, a bigger narrative. I like the sort of wider security narrative. It spoke to economic narrative. It picked up on the fact that the world is a pretty dangerous place and that that's important. And I think that worked quite well for Rishi. I haven't heard that since, so I think they should think about that as well.
I think, I mean, if you don't mind me saying so, I think the Tory campaign feels really strategically incoherent in that way. You don't know whether from one day they're going for a broad church, one nation, or it seems mostly core vote stuff at the moment.
So far, it does look a bit like that. And I think Farage might encourage them to do more of that. I would like to see them do a bit more vision stuff.
I think you would, but I'm not sure you're going to get it.
Thanks both very much indeed. Looking forward to getting your take on the debate as well as we go on through the programme. Well, as we've just been discussing, immigration is proving to be a prominent feature of the campaign so far. And data editor Ed Conway has been looking at what is actually going on with the numbers, stripped of the political spin. Here is his campaign check.
Immigration, it's one of those issues that basically all of the party leaders like to talk about when it comes to an election, but there's lots of misconceptions about what's going on with migration. One of them is, isn't it all about small boats? Well, actually, it's not. Obviously, that's a visible part of it. But when you look at the numbers, the number of people coming across in small boats last year, it was just under 30,000. OK, it's very high historically, but still compare that to, for instance, the total number of asylum seekers. That's a lot higher, 81,000. Compare it to the number of people coming in to study. That is far, far higher, 379,000. And the number of people coming into work is even higher still, over 400,000. And when you toss up basically everything, you're talking about well over 1 million people coming into the country, of which small boats is really only a small proportion. However, the totals are indeed very big indeed. And when we look back through history, this is kind of going back, looking at population-adjusted migration flows. Anything above the line is more people coming in than going. Anything below the line is the other way around. And we're going back to 1855 here. And what I want you to focus on is over here. Just look at this. In the last couple of years, look at what happens to this line. It goes up to totally unprecedented levels. It's never been that high before. So this is certainly a big issue and one that all of the party leaders, as I say, want to talk about. Rishi Sunak, we've just heard from him. He said the plan is working, but migration levels are still too high, so we're going further. We have a clear plan to stop the boats. We heard about that a second ago. Numbers not that big compared with the rest of it. And put a legal cap, this is perhaps the important thing, a legal cap on numbers. So he hasn't said what the cap is actually going to be. One person who thinks he knows what the cap should be, it's this man, it's Nigel Farage. He thinks net migration should be 0. So this is the net zero he actually rather likes. But it raises a question, OK? So first of all, do these caps ever actually work? And this is showing you quite a famous cap. So this is the David Cameron cap. This is showing you net migration, so the bars above the line showing that's more people coming in than going. He wanted to keep net migration in the tens of thousands. Did that work? Well, have a look at the bars. No, it didn't. No year, apart from this is the kind of COVID year, was it below the bar. And by then, actually, Boris Johnson had basically got rid of that cap. He brought in his own rules, points-based immigration system, and, of course, famously, the post-Brexit rules come into force. This was the response to Brexit. What did it do? Those rules came in, and look at the bars. They went up higher than ever before. Final thing, though, can you actually have net zero migration? You might have thought no, looking at this chart, but let's just kind of rewind back through history, go back even further and have a look at this. Actually, there have been some incidents where you had more people leaving the country than entering, not that long ago. So 1992, 93, the UK had a recession. A lot of people left. There were high interest rates, high unemployment. They got out of the country. So that was net zero migration, as it were. 1988, freedom of movement. A lot of people went into the EU. They moved across to the EU as well. But more broadly, it's this period here that's striking. There's a post-war period, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, where loads more people actually left the country than coming in. Why? Because the economy wasn't that attractive. The people were worried about this at the time. There was a post-war brain drain. So you can certainly get net zero migration it just might not be for the reasons that you're hoping for.
It's an absolutely fascinating canter through the numbers there from Ed Conway, and I'm sure that immigration will feature in tomorrow's newspapers as well. We'll have our extended press preview and news review from 10:30 this evening with tonight's news and tomorrow's headlines. Joining us will be the Conservative commentator Tim Montgomery and the journalist and broadcaster Jenny Kleeman. You're watching the Politics Hub. Coming up, we'll bring you all the build-up to that first election debate between Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer.
Museum of Homelessness is a new kind of museum. It's been set up and is run by people with experience of homelessness. So it's sort of the answer that you get when you ask people who are homeless what a museum should do. So we do everything a normal museum might do, exhibitions, events and things like that. We also take direct community action and we campaign independently on behalf of people who are homeless.
Well, I think there's so much urgency around homelessness, right? And I think, where do you get your news about homelessness? I suppose you might look at a Christmas appeal or read the press, and I think people have a lot of burning questions. And so the museum, I think, answers that by giving people a feeling, an experience. You know, when you go to a museum, you often don't really remember the label, but you remember the kind of thing that you kind of set your eyes on and you really reflected on and you kind of engaged with. So we're trying to bring that feeling out as well from people. So people want to, they have questions, but they also want to connect really with something. And I think over the last 10 years, we've learned that could be a very powerful way for people to engage with homelessness. So when people come to the Museum of Homelessness, they're not getting a traditional museum experience at all.
We'd like people to know that people who are homeless are not victims. And actually, within the homeless community lies solutions and creative solutions to a lot of the problems that society is facing at the moment. So our opening exhibition, which the community has designed, is a 90-minute experience which is called How to Survive the Apocalypse. And we're inviting the public to come and to hear stories of homelessness that you won't hear anywhere else, and maybe to find some of the solutions to some of the things that society is facing today. People can expect to hear object stories from our collection, connect with people who are experiencing homelessness in a way that you won't find anywhere else in the UK. People can expect an authentic experience and, as I said earlier, finding some of those answers to some of the stuff that's going on in society that we need to fix.
Welcome back. You're watching the Politics Hub on Sky News. The top stories. Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer are gearing up for the first TV debate of the election campaign this evening. So we'll be heading back there in just a moment. Two people have been arrested after the Reform UK leader Nigel Farage has a milkshake thrown over him while campaigning in Clacton. And on the campaign trail, the Conservatives, Labour and Reform have all been talking about how they want to cut legal migration. You can stay up to date with all the goings-on in the election on our digital Politics Hub by scanning the QR code at the bottom of your screen, among the other stories we've been covering that you can read about today. Diane Abbott's been confirmed as the Labour candidate for Hackney North and Stoke Newington following months of uncertainty over her future in the party. Meanwhile, the former Labour candidate for Chingford and Woodford Green, Faiza Shaheen, has resigned from the Labour Party. It comes after she was blocked from being the party's candidate in the constituency. And Sky News has taken a look at some of the fashion choices made by politicians on the campaign trail, from those Adidas Sambas, remember them, to butterfly pattern ties. For all that and much more, visit our Sky News Politics Hub blog. Well, the anticipation's building for that first debate showdown between Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer. John Craig is sampling the mood for us. John, what's happening?
Well, Sophie, this is the spin room. Let's see if some of the top scribblers from Fleet Street and elsewhere, how willing they are to be spun Ryan Saby is the Deputy Political Editor of The Sun. George Eaton is the Senior Editor Politics of the New Statesman magazine. Ryan, what are you expecting?
I'm expecting Rishi Sunak he's got to land some blows tonight. He's had a very difficult start to the election campaign. You go back to the very beginning of that appearance in Downing Street when he was rain-soaked. He's had some policies that seem to be polling relatively popular, but the polls aren't changing at all. When you look at that MRP poll yesterday where Labour have that majority of 194 seats, he's got to make some inroads tonight.
George, what are you expecting?
All the pressures on Rishi Sunak. Keir Starmer will be looking to keep him focused on the Tories' 14 years in office, pounding him on cost of living, NHS, crime, and trying to avoid any slip-ups. He's the one with that big poll lead. He wants to avoid anything that resembles a wobble. So I think Labour, the aim is just to get through tonight without any surprises.
Do you think that Rishi Sunak's got it in him to take the gloves off and fight?
I think so. He's done it before. You know, he came in the 2019 election. He was, stood in for Boris Johnson in several of those debates. He's been there. He's done it. He's been Prime Minister for a couple of years. I think he's certainly up for it. He's got he thinks he's got the policies to win over the country, but it's up to the viewers tonight.
And Sir Keir?
Well, the challenge for him is to look like a Prime Minister in waiting. So his ratings are better than Rishi Sunak. The challenge for him will be, he's got his attack lines on the Conservatives, but can he give voters who might be tuning in really to this election for the first time an idea of what Labour would do differently? I think that's the twin challenge.
Thank you both very much. Well, there you go, Sophie. A couple of snap verdicts ahead of the debate. We'll no doubt be talking to plenty more people both during and after the debate.
I'm sure you will. John, thank you very much indeed. John Craig there in Salford for us. Right, let's get the thoughts of Kate and Ben, shall we? Kate, Rishi Sunak needs a breakthrough moment, doesn't he? Could it come from a TV debate?
It could. I mean, look, the pressure is often on the front runner, so Rishi comes to that with, less to lose, as it were. But he's got to strike a balance, I think, tonight between trying to get a sort of message across to the people at home, the folks in front of their TVs, and resisting being too much of the sort of school debating society, let's trip up Keir Starmer. But he will be thinking of that because, of course, one of the things that Tories feel is that no one exactly knows what Keir Starmer's policies are. So I think we'll see maybe a balance tonight, or I hope a bit of a balance, see if he can do both things together.
But it was interesting, Kate just saying there that actually Keir Starmer's one with more to lose because he's the one ahead in the polls. I mean, if you were in number 10, would you be advising him to be doing debates at all?
Well, I think it's very difficult not to do some. I'm very pleased that this campaign hasn't been dominated, as I think the Johnson election was, for like 2 weeks, about will he, won't he questions, rather than policy questions. At least this campaign hasn't been like that. These debates have been organised. I think it's, inevitable that he would do at least one or two, but you're right. I think, given how far Labour is ahead in the polls, I think it's our election to lose. So if I were him, I would just not want to slip up and give anything away that could be a game-changing moment. In my view, these debates don't tend to push the dial or change very much at all. They might for a bit. They did with Nick Clegg, but only temporarily.
Yeah.
So in the end, I think a lot of people have already made up their mind. Whether anyone would change their minds as a result of this, some may have their views confirmed, and there's still, another 3 or 4 weeks to go.
Yeah, there are. It always amazes me, and this is what I think some people might not realise at home, is how much preparation goes into these things from broadcasters' perspective, but also the politicians. Hours and hours of prep, research, acting out, etc. I mean, you were by the side of David Cameron through a lot of this, weren't you?
Absolutely. So the first ever election debate was 2010, and that was David Cameron. We brought in over a team, I think Obama's team, to help us prep, and we would go through, offensive, defensive, pivot, land your zinger, like a sort of boxing prep. And we did role play. We did have people playing. We heard that Oliver Dowden was playing Starmer. I think he played Nigel Farage in one of our prep debates.
It's a bit of a different role.
Exactly.
I love it. A bit of Amdram from
exactly.
Inhabiting all these different people. It's an art, isn't it?
It also sucks an awful lot of capacity out of the campaign. I mean, the amount of time that's spent preparing for this, means that a lot of the top people are not focusing on other things. But I just think that's inevitable. But the more I've seen Keir actually in the campaign, the more I think he's I didn't expect him to look as if he was enjoying it as much as he is. Well, I think it's also he's very. I think he's a very, because he's a quite down-to-earth guy. He likes being with people. He likes being with people, and I think he likes meeting voters, and I think you're seeing that. So I hope that the fact that he's relaxed and enjoying the campaign will serve him well tonight, and obviously his lawyerly skills hopefully too. And I also hope that it doesn't get personal. I actually don't think. I mean, John in his earlier interview said that there may be some personal attacks. I don't think those personal attacks work either way. I don't think the viewers and the voters like them. It's not part of our culture in the same way as it is in the States.
Absolutely. No, and I think another thing is just don't get the spin wrong either. I seem to remember there was a sort of happy warrior was left in outside for Ed Miliband and was found this note of how he had to be. So that was sort of slightly distracted from that debate.
Yeah, get all that bit right as well.
Spin discipline as well, I think.
Thanks both very much indeed. Coming up next on the Politics Hub, we'll bring you more build-up to the first election debate between Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer. We're going to be talking to Labour's Wes Streeting. There he is, standing by. Hello, welcome back to the Politics Hub. We are about an hour and a half away from the first TV debate between Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer. Now, some might say that the person with most to lose tonight is the apparent frontrunner, the Labour leader. Joining us now from the spin room for Labour is Wes Streeting, the Shadow Health Secretary. Thanks for being with us. Do you agree with that then? Keir Starmer's the one with the most to lose tonight.
I think it's the country that's got the most to lose at this general election if they hand the matches back to the arsonist to finish the job. And tonight's debate is about the choice facing the country. 5 more years of chaos with the Conservatives, or change for the better with Labour. And frankly, in the last 24 hours, with the spectacular arrival of Nigel Farage into the election campaign, it just feels like another chapter in the Conservative Party's psychodrama. You've got Rishi Sunak crying into his cornflakes this morning because it's seen as a disaster for him. You've got people who are currently Conservative candidates and former ministers like Andrea Jenkins almost endorsing Nigel Farage on social media today, and the speculation that Conservative candidates, even at this late stage, are preparing to jump ship. So I just think this is just another kind of taste of what will be if we end up with that unprecedented fifth term of Conservative government. And that's why it's so important that Labour's in the position we are in today, thanks to Keir Starmer's leadership, of having changed the Labour Party, understood why we lost in 2019, and being able to look the country in the eye now with optimism and confidence, offering the change that the country is crying out for.
OK, Wes, you've done a grand job there, hitting all of your campaigning points, but the question was actually, is it Keir Starmer who's got the most to lose from the TV debates because he's ahead in the polls?
No, look, this is a head-to-head. It's a choice. We are, you know, I've just like you, I've seen the polls, and I'm not going to pretend that are good for Labour, obviously, are somehow bad for Labour. But as with, I think the general advice on opinion polls is enjoy them, but don't inhale them. Not a single vote has been cast in this general election yet, and Keir Starmer for the last 4 years has been the enemy of complacency. We're not going to be complacent now. Not a single vote has been cast, and we're going to fight hard to earn the trust of people at this general election and to earn positive votes for Labour at this general election, so we've got a mandate to deliver the change the country needs.
It does feel, doesn't it, that the Conservatives have announced, I guess, more policies than you during this election campaign. You know, national service, tax cuts for pensioners today, with the annual cap on visas regarding immigration. I mean, you can disagree with the policies, but they are putting stuff out there. Are you just, waiting for the manifesto for your rabbit in the hat, or do they just have more policies than you to announce?
Well, it's true that apparently, having not learned the lessons from Liz Truss's mini-budget, they are splurging more than £70 billion worth of unfunded spending commitments and tax cuts in the vain, hope that people will forget 14 years of Conservative chaos and forget the fact that their mortgages, their rents, their bills are higher.
Come on,
the NHS
answer the question. I'm going to pin you down. Just let's try and focus on the question, Wes. What is it fair to? What are you going to do with your policies? Are you waiting for the manifesto, or are you just? Is it the Ming-Val strategy, not rocking the vote?
40,000 more appointments a week to cut NHS waiting lists through extra evening and weekend working would be real change for those 7.5 million NHS waiting lists, doubling the number of diagnostic scanners so we diagnose earlier and treat faster. Real change for 1.6 million people waiting for tests and scans. 13,000 more police officers on our streets to rebuild neighbourhood policing. Real change for communities that are blighted by drug dealing and antisocial behaviour. Primary school breakfast clubs, free primary school breakfast clubs in every primary school in the country. Real change for those children that are turning up with hungry bellies when we want them to turn up for school with hungry minds. So there are plenty of policies we've already set out there, and unlike the Conservatives, ours are fully costed and fully funded because we want to give people the assurance that at this general election, the promises that Labour makes will be promises that we can keep and the country can afford. That also, in itself, would be change from the disastrous recklessness we've seen now under successive Conservative Prime Ministers and Chancellors. They've had plenty of time, plenty of personnel changes. I think they've run out of road, run out of steam. It's time for change, and that's the argument Keir Starmer will be putting forward to the country this evening.
Now, he's not in the debate tonight, but he has been in the news today because of the milkshake incident. What's your reaction to what happened to Nigel Farage today in Clacton?
Well, I'm appalled by it. I could not disagree more strongly with Nigel Farage on a whole range of issues. But he's putting himself forward for election. He has the right to make his case and make his argument like every other candidate standing for election. And the best way to take on Nigel Farage is to debate him and then to beat him at the ballot box. Instead, chucking a milkshake at him, I mean, firstly, it just puts Nigel Farage in the media more and gives him more airtime, more oxygen, which I think Nigel Farage will be probably grateful for on balance. But secondly, there is this serious point, which is, if I put myself in his shoes for a moment, I'm pretty sure that when that person lunged forward, he would have had no idea what was going on, what kind of liquid was being thrown at him, what kind of threat he was under. And I'm sure at this end, this end of the day, he'll shrug it off. I saw him on the telly earlier sort of laughing it off. But I think it's serious and I think it should be condemned, and certainly the Labour Party condemns it without hesitation or reservation.
OK, we're at the time of the interview, but are there any little nuggets you can give us about how Keir Starmer's been prepping? Any insight into his debate prep?
Look, Keir Starmer is a thorough guy. He turns up at these events and debates well prepared. I think he's been looking forward to this. I mean, he's been chomping at the bit for a general election. I've been out on the campaign trail in the last week and a half with Keir. He's energised by it. He's really looking forward to this evening. As you can see, the sort of excitement and tension is building here. We've got a little Labour room next door to the Conservatives room. I've tried to put a glass up against the wall to hear what's going on. They're all speaking a bit too quietly. But, joking aside, I think this evening really is an opportunity to have that debate, and for the debate to be about the issues, first and foremost, but also a debate about who people want to be their Prime Minister. Okay. And I just say about Keir Starmer, and I'm not going to talk Rishi Sunak down, but I'll say about Keir Starmer, he is someone of decency, integrity, and someone who has shown the steel to lead the Labour Party from its worst defeat since 1935 to where we are today. And I hope people see the Keir Starmer that I'm proud to work with every day in the debate this evening.
OK, we are out of time. Wes Streeting, thank you very much indeed. Wes Streeting there talking about holding a cup up against the wall of the Conservative planning room just to try and get those all-important nuggets of information in Salford. Right, let's continue with our build-up, shall we, tonight's first TV debate between the two leaders. Christine Jardine from the Liberal Democrats joins us now. Thanks for being with us. So there are no Lib Dems in the debate tonight, so you're our neutral voice on the programme. Who do you think is going to win?
I think that the biggest danger tonight is that the public doesn't really like anything that they see. They're not engaged. What I've been hearing out on the doorsteps today and, for all this last 2 weeks is that people want something different from what either the Conservative or the Labour Party is offering. And they want a government that they can trust, and they don't feel they've had that for the last 9 years. And so I think the biggest thing tonight will be that the public just doesn't really engage with either Rishi Sunak or Keir Starmer.
In many ways, the debate that everyone remembers was that three-way debate back in 2010, that sparked Clegg Mania, that had Gordon Brown and David Cameron saying, I agree with Nick. Do you think the debates could be decisive for the Lib Dems this year?
Well, I think people, when Ed has his opportunity to speak, I think that we will see a very different debate. I think we will see a debate. Ed's been enjoying this campaign. We're all enjoying this campaign. We feel we are on the up again. And I think that will come across. But the important thing is we believe in listening to the public, and that's what the public want. We believe in getting out there, talking to the public, listening to what they have to say. And I think there's a danger that tonight comes across as two people talking to each other and not listening to the country. And I think that will be the difference when the Liberal Democrats get on. And that was the thing that Nick Clegg had, that people felt that he had listened. And I think they will think again when they see Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer that they're not really men who are listening.
You said that Ed Davey's been, enjoying the campaign. It certainly comes through. I guess my question is, we had that YouGov MRP poll yesterday showing, frankly, a real breakthrough for the Liberal Democrats, if that projection is right, up to 48 MPs. Do you not need to be a bit more serious now? Is it really a great look for a party that could be influential after the election, having a leader who's, pretending to fall off a paddleboard or going down a water slide?
We're very serious about our politics, and those photo opportunities were a way of drawing attention to those politics so that people hear what we have to say. Ed's very serious about social care, for example, about making it possible for families in this country to get the social care that they need, and for those who need personal care, to have it at home, free personal care at home, to allow people to move out of hospitals where they're stuck because they can't get the care packages. We need to pay people more, £2 an hour more, we reckon. So Ed is very serious about these things. He's very serious about the economy. He is an economist. He's very serious about energy. He was the Secretary of State for Energy. So Ed is a very serious politician, but, you know, we're drawing attention to the fact that there is a serious problem with our waterways and with our swimming waters in this country. And in order to do that, we had a photo opportunity. But, you know, we are at the same time enjoying our politics, and we are enjoying the campaign because we are connecting with our voters. We are listening to what they say, and we are raising the issues that they're telling us are important to them.
OK, thank you very much indeed. Christine Jardine there for the Liberal Democrats.
You're welcome.
Well, the first televised showdown between Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer, as we've been discussing, is just over an hour away now. So the pressure is on to the Prime Minister to deliver a standout performance to try and shift the narrative of this campaign. Joining us from the spin room in Salford from the Conservatives is the Health Secretary Victoria Atkins. So what do you think Rishi Sunak needs to do tonight?
Well, I think the Prime Minister will set out his plans for the future of our country. We all know we've had a tough couple of years with COVID and with the war in Ukraine and the impact that that has had on inflation. But now we are turning a corner with the economy, and I hope we're going to hear about our plans for the economy, our plans to lower taxes, our plans to lower immigration, but also our plans to ensure that our society, with our national service that we've described for young people, with our plans to protect pensioners and their tax payments. Sorry, it's very, very loud behind me. Forgive me, it's difficult. But our plans to ensure that we are putting a lock on the basic state pensions so that pensioners are not paying taxes. That is a promise that Labour has refused to replicate. We're going to hear more about this, I hope, in the debate. And also, I hope that we hear the Labour leader answer some questions, because so far his campaign has consisted of walking around with a single word placard and describing that he's carrying a vase. Well, I'm sorry, but governing our great country is much more complicated than walking around with a vase.
Thank you for battling with the noise. I know it's always hard in these circumstances, but we can hear you loud and clear at least. You say there that what Rishi Sunak needs to do tonight is to talk about the policies that he's already announced. But that's not going to be enough, is it? Because, you know, you've announced these policies and the polls haven't moved, or if they have moved, they've moved in the wrong direction. You know, it hasn't worked. You need something else, don't you?
Well, look, we can all think of polls in the past that were out of step with the British public and got it wrong. But we have always said that the only poll that matters is the big day on the 4th of July, and that is what we are working towards. I have to say, our policies are getting a very good reception on the doorstep, and the Labour Party should not take the British public for granted. You know, this is an enormous choice facing the British public. There are only one of two people who can be Prime Minister on the 5th of July, the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, or Sir Keir Starmer. And that choice is beginning to become really clear as we have set out our ambitions, our plans for a low tax, low immigration economy, and Labour, who are refusing to answer questions on some of the most important issues of our day because they either don't have a plan or they seem scared of revealing it to the British public.
Just sticking with the Conservatives' plan, I guess the problem is whether voters trust you to deliver on it. You're talking there about a low immigration economy. Well, with your annual visa cap to reduce immigration, net migration was at 685,000 last year. You know, I'm old enough to remember when David Cameron promised it would go down to the tens of thousands. How's that pledge going?
So the last year or so, again, viewers will remember, not only did the great British public open their arms to people fleeing the war in Ukraine, and we had a huge number, hundreds of thousands of people coming across.
People fleeing Ukraine? It's more than I realised.
So, Sophie, Sophie, please don't let me finish the answer, because it's a number of factors. So we opened our arms to people from Ukraine. We also opened our arms to people fleeing Hong Kong, with all of the the human rights issues and difficulties that there are in Hong Kong. Of course, we also welcomed Afghans. But on top of that, the health and social care visa, which is an important part of ensuring that we are able to attract the brightest and the best from around the world, that was incredibly popular. Because guess what? The UK is an incredibly respected and popular country. Forget all the misery that you hear from Labour. Around the world, our country is viewed with great fondness, and people want to come and work in our NHS. So that is an example of a visa that had even more success in attracting applicants than we planned. And so that's why we are bringing these measures in. We've already brought them in to ensure that we are really concentrating on those sectors that need the international workforce, and we're beginning to see those figures falling. And indeed, the independent OBR thinks that these measures alone will have halved legal migration by next year, next June. So these measures are in place. Labour have opposed all of this, by the way. You know, they've suddenly woken up to the issue of immigration, and they've opposed 100 measures that we have brought forward to try and tackle illegal immigration. So there are very grave answers for Sir Keir to answer.
Some in your party believe that the only way to make your policies work and to get to your ambition of where you want to be on immigration is to leave the ECHR. Is that something that you think would be a good idea?
Well, we're going to see, as I say, with the manifesto, this will be looked at in some detail. But we have always been clear that we will not allow... Well, no, just wait for the manifesto. But we've always been clear that we want to be able to use our domestic law in order to remove people who should not be here because they've come here illegally. Again, a contrast with Sir Keir Starmer, who wrote that letter trying to ensure that rapists were not deported from the United Kingdom. Again, a question for him to answer. But we want to, Parliament has passed the laws that we have put forward, particularly in relation to Rwanda, and we want to be clear that our Parliament is sovereign and it is they are our borders, our immigration laws, and it is not for a foreign court to dictate to us how organised crime gangs should operate. We want to clear those OCGs, those organised crime gangs, away. There's a whole lot of work going on across Europe to enable that to happen. But importantly, we have done a great deal of work on this, and time again, Labour have tried to stop us. So what faith can we have? How can we believe Sir Keir Starmer when he says he wants to tackle immigration? Because the evidence, after all, he's a barrister like me, the evidence is to the contrary.
OK, because we are out of time. Victoria Atkins, thank you very much indeed. From a very noisy Salford. You can see there, of course, the spin room building up behind you. Thank you. Still to come on the Politics Hub. A lot's changed since the first TV leaders debate back in 2010, which sparked Clegg mania. We'll chat about how things have changed. Stay with us.
Coming up on the UK Tonight at 8, the cyber attack on London hospitals, which has led to procedures being cancelled. Also, the baby found in a shopping bag who has a brother and sister who were also abandoned. Plus, the 11-year-old with 4 books published on why kids should keep putting pen to paper in their spare time. All that and much more coming up on the UK Tonight at 8.
This conflict. They keep telling us that they want aid.
And this is what's left of it.
Heavy vehicle.
Why only in America?
People want their country to work.
Just want a job in a normal life.
Why are these homes empty?
I want you to be honest with people.
That has happened within minutes.
Sky News, the full story first. Free wherever you get your news.
They have breached the road. There is a lot of gas being fired all around us.
शांति से इनको समझाओ वरना ये हम लोग
It is an absolute carnival kind of atmosphere out here for Prime Minister Modi's decisive victory. These students are defying the prohibitory orders and now they're going to be arrested. We aim to be the best and most trusted place for news. The roads have been inundated. The only way out is to get people by boat. What is feared that over 200 people might have died because of these landslides. This on any given day would have been bustling with people, but today it's absolutely deserted. This is one of the most sensitive areas of northeast Delhi where there's been clashes. I'm Neville Lazarus and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi.
Hello, welcome back to the Politics Hub. Well, tonight's TV debate is an hour away, but do these events change anything? Well, let's bring in Kate and Ben, shall we? We were chatting a bit, weren't we, about 2010. I agree with Nick, Cleggmania, but it does feel like it was almost like another world, another lifetime away, where people would watch the whole debate back then. I'm sure they will this time round, but it's also about those kind of viral moments, social media, and the kind of fierceness, I guess, of kind of modern day campaigning.
Yeah, as I said, I'm not sure these debates really make a huge amount of difference. And as you say, the technology and media has changed so much. I mean, one of the things I picked up is young people seem to really like Labour's digital. Young people who get most of their information on TikTok, they're not going to be sitting and watching the whole of this debate, but they will see quite a lot of clips from it, possibly built into films on TikTok, and that is almost, more powerful than the debate and watching a debate live.
So in 2010, what I remember even more than Nick doing well was, Nick doing well was the live worm, as it was called, which was a response in time for how people felt it was going. And the whole way through in the green room, I just could see the worm liking Nick and not liking my boss as much. And that was the sort of first moment of the campaign. I mean, to Ben's point, he was absolutely right. It looked like we might be running a different campaign after that, with Nick doing so well and the polls going. But actually, in the longer run, it didn't really make a huge difference.
Of course, David Cameron got his own back, didn't he, over the worm by kind of nicking all those seats off Nick Clegg at the next election.
He absolutely did.
Yeah. You were saying you take a bit of a semi-detached role at this election, weren't you? A bit of campaigning. How are you kind of picking up with the campaign so far?
I think it's been very positive. I feel that both from what I hear on the doorstep, but also looking at the polls and watching more coverage. The thing in a normal campaign, I don't digest any news because you're just too busy. I think it seems to me that the more people see of Keir, the more they like him. I think Sunak has the opposite problem. It feels positive for us, but as you say, a lot of people are still undecided. A lot of people could still break either way, and that's one of the reasons you've got this Labour campaign, which is no complacency as its main motto.
OK, we're out of time, but it's been really interesting to talk to both of you. Really interesting chats today, so thank you. Well, that is it from us tonight. Just an hour now to go until the first head-to-head debate between Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer. I will see you tomorrow at 7. Up next, it is the UK Tonight with Sarah Jane Mee. And, of course, keep an eye on that countdown clock behind me as well.